Welcome to my views and news. Very important news story for you, whereas we have received some exclusive information about recruitment and trainings ongoing of some civilians who are Ethiopians. Are they Tigrayans? Are they members of Oromo Liberation Army? Are they Gomas fighters? Are they Kemet fighters? Why are they being trained? Who is training them? Could these training recruitments be a threat to the peace agreement signed between TPLF and Ethiopian federal government? Where are recruitments and training of these Ethiopians underway? Firstly, viewers, for years, if not months, Ethiopia has been accusing Sudan that Sudan is destabilizing Ethiopia, Egypt as well, that Sudanese soil is being used against Ethiopia. Especially in the last 2 years, we have seen that in several statements, Ethiopian federal government, Amhara regional government, they accused Sudanese military, Sudanese government, that they were backing, they were hosting rather, Tigray fighters and fighters of other groups who were being trained, armed on Sudanese soil. And it was happening. Because I think in September, we reported that Tigray fighters were being trained and armed on Sudanese soil. Recruitments were underway, and some ENDF Tigrania speaking peacekeeping force members, UN peacekeepers, they refused to return to Ethiopia because they were from Tigray and they feared they would face persecution in Ethiopia. They sought asylum in Sudan. Later, they joined Tigray fighters. And Tigray fighters then tried to enter Volkayet from Sudan just a few weeks ago. They were launching attacks on Volkayet from Sudan. There was heavy fighting. There are several videos on that. And international media reported too about ENDF peacekeepers from Tigray joining Tigray fighters on Sudan, side of Sudan, Ethiopia. It wasn't a secret. Everyone knew. Even one TPLF government official once said that Tigray fighters were being mobilized on Sudanese soil. After several attacks on Volkayet from Sudan, Tigray fighters lost momentum. They could not enter Volkayet. And on other fronts, Tigray forces were losing ground too. They lost Korum, Melamata. They had to withdraw from near Buldia. They lost Shire. It was becoming difficult for Tigray fighters to launch a major attack on Volkayet from Sudan. So they lost pace, they lost momentum, but they remained there. Apart from Tigray fighters, other armed groups are also operating on Sudanese soil. Gomas there, Gomas fighters, Kemet fighters too, and members of Oromo Liberation Army too. Kemet fighters have been involved in attacks near Matimma, and they enter Matimma from Sudanese side of the border. So several armed factions operating on a Sudanese soil. Now, when peace agreement has been signed between Ethiopian federal government and Tigray regional government, it was being hoped that all trainings, recruitments in Sudan will come to an end. But we have learned through some local sources that recruitment and training still underway. Recruitment and training of Ethiopians on Sudanese soil is underway. Sudanese government, Sudanese military obviously are involved. Who are these recruits? Are they Tigrayans? Are they members? Are they from Oromia? Are they Kemet? Are they Gomas? It's not clear. What we have been able to confirm through some local sources who live there is that it is happening. It is continuing. And obviously, the Sudanese government is involved. Question is, what is Ethiopian government doing? Ethiopian government is raising this issue. Why? Because it's a matter of security, and Demeke Mekonnen, Ethiopian Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, where was he yesterday? He was in Sudan. He met with Abdul Fattah al-Burhan and Hamati, Vice Chairman of Sudan Sovereignty Council. And before Demeke, who was in Sudan? Ethiopian Intelligence Agency Chief. I think for 2 or 3 days he remained there. He stayed in Sudan and there was top level meetings. And before that, al-Burhan visited Ethiopia. Ethiopia has been trying to raise this issue to stop Sudan from backing, arming armed groups operating on its soil, working against Ethiopia. But it seems that the armed factions are still operating. Only a matter of concern which is going to be addressed is, are they Tigrayans who are being recruited and trained? If they are Tigrayans, it could be a threat to the peace agreement. And of course, people will point fingers towards TPLF, though TPLF is implementing the peace agreement with sincerity. We have seen that in Tigray. TPLF surrendering heavy weapons, withdrawing fighters from front lines. So far, so good. TPLF has shown sincerity so far. But if Tigray fighters are being trained, are being recruited on Sudanese soil, it means that either TPLF is playing a double game, or some regional players are using disgruntled Tigrayan elements, and they want to use these elements against TPLF, against Ethiopian government. That is why trainings and recruitments are underway. But we're not sure if the trained fighters are Tigrayans or are they members of other groups like Oromo Liberation Army, Goma's fighters, Kemet fighters. Several groups are operating. But the issue is a serious one. Ethiopian government knows that Sudan and maybe Egypt too, we don't know, but Egypt, Sudan, they're in alliance against Ethiopian government. We've seen that. Especially in the case of GERD, we saw joint stance taken by the two countries, Sudan and Egypt. There could be Egyptian involvement as well. Ethiopian government is raising this issue. Ethiopia has an outstanding border issue as well with Sudan, Al-Fashaga, taken by Sudanese forces after the start of Tigray war. Al-Fashaga is part of Sudan internationally. Ethiopia denies, and now Sudanese forces are in control of around 95% of Al-Fashaga. That issue unresolved, and talks underway for demarcation of Sudan-Ethiopia border. And now trainings and recruitment underway. That is why top Ethiopian government officials are visiting Sudan. Will Sudan listen to Ethiopia? Or are there some other players who want to undermine the peace agreement signed between TPLF and Ethiopian federal government? Who could be the regional players? Sudan, Egypt, or some other countries? It's not clear. What we are sharing is what we have been able to confirm through locals living there who have seen what is happening there. It's not just a rumor. not just an unconfirmed report. It is happening there. Ethiopia trying to resolve this issue through dialogue, through visits, but if it isn't resolved through dialogue, we could see serious escalation of tension between Sudan and Ethiopia. Thank you for watching.